Major developments tonight in the Gabby Petito case. We now know the remains found are hers, and we know it was a homicide as the search for her fiancé intensifies. We're hearing outrage from the Biden administration over these images of border agents on horseback confronting migrants at the border. They're using the word horrified, but is that fair? We'll give that some context ahead. And Black Lives Matter protesters returned to the scene of a confrontation between tourists and a restaurant hostess who wouldn't let them in because of a vaccine mandate. Protesters say it was racist. Great to have you with us tonight. The Donlon Report starts right now. Good evening. We had a feeling, and tonight we have an answer. The FBI now confirming the body found in the Teton National Forest in Wyoming was, in fact, Gabby Petito, the 22-year-old who disappeared during a cross-country trip with her fiancé. The manner of death is homicide. The exact cause of death still pending the final results of that autopsy. But that is one of the questions now. How did she die? And where is Brian Laundrie, her fiancé? The 23-year-old returned to Florida on September 1st without Gabby, driving her van, but refused to answer questions or talk to police before he disappeared. Tonight, the search for Laundrie intensifies. His family's attorney had scheduled a news conference for today, but canceled at the last minute, reportedly after talking with the FBI. And there's also this. Someone picked up an image of a man on a trail camera, a man with a backpack who looks like Laundrie. This is in Baker, Florida, about 500 miles from Laundrie's home in Northport. The sheriff's office there says it conducted an extensive search in the area and added no one and nothing of note was located. So the search continues, and that's where we start tonight with NewsNation's Brian Enton, who's been all over this story for us, and he joins us tonight from Sarasota County, Florida. Brian, what's the latest?
Yeah, Joe, we're at this massive wildlife reserve. This is 24,000 acres, and this is where the search has been happening all day long. You can't see from here, but back behind these roads, it's just mile after mile of swampland. You look down this dirt road here. This goes on for literally, it's 24,000 acres out here. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack. I want to show you something. We went up in a helicopter today because that's really the only way you can understand how big this area is and even see the search, because they're out on swamp buggies and ATVs and airboats searching for Gabby Petito's fiance, Brian Laundrie, right now. This isn't even something they can do by road because this 75% of this area is covered by water. So far today, we just learned from police that they found nothing. They just called off the search for the day. The weather out here is not good, but they say they will be back out here tomorrow, Joe.
Brian, I'm sure you got a good idea from the air just how challenging this is for officials who are looking for him.
Yeah, very, very challenging. Again, really like a needle in a haystack. I knew that this was a big swampy area. It's full of alligators and snakes, but I couldn't really appreciate it until we went up in the helicopter, and you could just see for pretty much as long as the eye could see that this was just a massive, massive wildlife area. It would be very, very hard to find someone out here. What's interesting is they're zeroing in on this area where we are near Venice, Florida, this side of the wildlife reserve. We're wondering, do they know something based on their search of the home yesterday, the FBI search warrant that is leading them to this specific area, especially since there's so many resources out here and they're going to come back for a second day tomorrow.
Brian, did he take a vehicle with him, or is he believed to be on foot?
He's believed to be on foot. He had a Mustang. We believe that he drove that Mustang, at least according to the parents, here to this wildlife reserve when they say he wanted to go for a hike. Again, a lot of people questioning that, considering it's been rainy and it's hot and there's alligators and snakes here. But that's what the parents say, that he was coming here for a hike. He was in a Mustang, but that Mustang somehow ended back up at the parents' house, which is also a big part of this mystery.
And Brian, have police said anything at all about any clues they might have at this point? Do they know? Did he take a phone with him? Anything?
He's not believed to have a phone. They haven't really elaborated. It's interesting now that the FBI has taken over the investigation. They're giving us very, very little information compared to when it was the local department handling things. But you mentioned earlier that picture from a wildlife camera in Okaloosa County, Florida. That's about 8 hours from where we are. That is getting a lot of attention today all over social media. A lot of people convinced it's Brian Laundrie. A lot of people saying it's not Brian Laundrie. The sheriff there released a statement today saying that they put a drone up in that area, that they sent deputies into that area where that wildlife camera was to search, that they came up with nothing. They say Brian Laundrie doesn't have a connection to that area, but they did not go as far as to say that is definitely not Brian Laundrie.
All right, Brian Enton, as usual, thank you for the update tonight. We'll be in touch. Let's bring in now Kenneth Gray, retired FBI special agent. Kenneth, it's a homicide now. How does that change this investigation?
So it makes all the difference in the world, Joe, because before it was a missing person search and the amount of tools, legal tools open to you was different for a missing person than it is for a homicide investigation. Now that it's in the realm of homicide, a lot more tools are available as far as getting search warrants, as far as getting phone records, as far as getting electronic records. So this is a different matter. Now they can actually bring all the forces of law enforcement to bear in this investigation.
Well, that's great insight. So does that mean that Brian Laundrie would now be considered a suspect instead of a person of interest?
Yes, I would think so.
All right, let's go to the search now. Kenneth, how does the FBI go about finding him?
So I was involved with the search for Eric Robert Rudolph back years ago in North Carolina, and we had set up a command post there, and we had agents from all over the country going through the mountainous area of North Carolina, and we did not find him in 2 years worth of search. And so in actuality, this search is going to be very difficult for this wide an area like this. There's no guarantee that he is even in this area. His parents said that they found his vehicle there, that he went hiking there, and that his vehicle somehow managed to get back from the preserve back to his residence. But that might have been just to buy him time to get totally out of the area. Certainly, it's worthwhile looking through the area there, especially if the search of his home came up with some information that would help support that he's in there. Mm-hmm. But there's no guarantee that he's actually even in the Carlton Preserve.
And no guarantee that he's still alive. Where are you on that?
So my first guess was, when I heard that he had gone into the Carlton Preserve there, was that he was going in there to kill himself. But, that's not based upon any fact. Sure. That's just based upon speculation. But you would think that if a person was going to do that, they'd want their body found. They wouldn't want to be eaten by alligators or something else.
Interesting. Okay. You mentioned the Rudolph case. I'm curious, Kenneth, because we all know and remember in that case, he was a survivalist. I mean, he knew how to survive on the land. And it's maybe one of the reasons he was able to elude everyone for so long. I don't know whether Brian Laundrie was. He was on a van trip cross country for several months, but that doesn't mean you can live off the land and hide. What are the challenges? At some point, he's going to have to surface if he's alive.
So you need to have either money, a support network, or an ability to live off the land on your own. And there's no indication that he has that. And so, he's going to have to either get assistance from somewhere, have a source of money, or find himself out of that wooded area and somewhere else if he is indeed inside the preserve. And what they're doing right now of searching in very select areas is the right approach to take at this point. But as your other reporter reported, another possibility would be to put a lot of air power out in that area and try to search the area by way of airplanes, by way of helicopters.
Kenneth, what kind of information do you think the FBI has and knows right now that they're not disclosing?
So you don't disclose all the information you have for various reasons for any investigation. So it's not just this investigation. That's the case in every investigation. You hold back what you have so that at the time of trial, you can sift through facts that are known and facts that are not known. But you got to also keep into mind that this is a murder investigation. The Bureau does not have jurisdiction for murder. So at some point, this is going to switch from the Bureau to maybe the Park Police there in Grand Teton, maybe the U.S. Forest Service officers, or maybe one of the local departments there, either the Jackson Police Department in that area, or even the Northport Police. But the FBI, because of the multi-jurisdictional nature of this, is assisting law enforcement. They will continue on as long as they have the resources to do so. But at some point, this becomes a local investigation.
Right. All right. Well, all interesting information. Kenneth Gray, retired FBI special agent. Thank you for your time tonight and your insight.
You're quite welcome.
Let's bring in now Arthur Idell, a criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor. My first question for you, Arthur, is why would the lawyer for the Laundrie schedule a news conference and then cancel it after speaking to the FBI?
Well, I have no idea what he was going to say at a news conference anyway, since he's made the decision some time ago that he wasn't going to allow his client to speak. So I don't know what he was going to say at the news conference. Allegedly, after he spoke to the FBI agents, he then canceled the news conference. So I'm not exactly sure what the legal strategy was there, except maybe to take some heat off of the family. I mean, there's been protests outside of his house where his parents are really paying the price for whatever actions he may have committed in Wyoming.
Defend the indefensible for us here, Arthur. He left without Gabby. He wouldn't talk to police. He's missing. He's on the run.
Well, it certainly appears to be that he is the perpetrator of this crime. However, what I have not heard today, Joe, is after the autopsy report, I have not heard that there is an arrest warrant. So you just went over everything with Special Agent Gray about, all the methods they have to find him. But I have not heard that legally, if they find him, they can arrest him. I haven't heard what the cause of death was, except that it was a homicide. So what does that mean? Well, it basically means she didn't have an aneurysm, a stroke, a heart attack, or anything like that. It usually means that it was death caused by another human being. But no one has made the next step to say, yes, we have probable cause to make an arrest that, in fact, Mr. Laundrie is the perpetrator of this crime. And here we have a judge who signed an arrest warrant, and we're out to apprehend him. Unless you've reported on it, Joe, and I missed it, I have not heard that.
But I do think...
So I don't know what would happen if he popped out of the woods right now and said hi to all the law enforcement officers, whether they're allowed to put handcuffs on him. I haven't heard anything that would indicate that they can do that.
I would guess the first thing they would say is you were on a cross-country trip with her in a van in remote, isolated areas, and you were the last one to see her.
Technically, he's invoked his right to counsel. So technically, his lawyer has said, I am representing him and nobody should talk to him without me being present. That's one of our constitutional rights, right? I mean, the one that we all know about. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be held against you. So if they find him and they grab him, technically by the letter of the law, knowing that he's represented by a lawyer, they are not allowed to ask him any questions. They can either let him go, or they can put handcuffs on him, or if he's in a public space, they could follow him. They can continue to surveil him. And when the autopsy report is completed and they have probable cause to make arrest, at that point, they can put handcuffs on him and charge him with homicide. And in the state of Wyoming, homicide is punishable, I believe, by the death penalty or life imprisonment. So this is obviously the most serious matter in our land.
Sure. What do you make of the family's actions, Arthur? It appears, at least from the outside looking in, that they gave Brian Laundrie a good, at least 4-day head start.
Joe, doing what I do and sometimes being in this position where people are not apprehended, this is their child and he may have done something horrible. We don't know that yet. He has not been accused of that yet. He is a suspect, but I don't know. I mean, that's a parent's decision. Do you turn your child over to the authorities knowing that he's facing the death penalty, or do you help your child escape? Those are moral decisions that I think only a human being can make when they're in that actual position. Here, it appears that they aided him in some form or another. But, he's a 23-year-old man. This isn't a 16-year-old kid. He can make his own decisions. Right. And apparently here, it seems like he did.
Yeah. Arthur Idell, thank you for lending your legal voice to us tonight. We appreciate it. It's good to see you.
Thanks, Joe. Always a pleasure.
Calls for an investigation from the White House to Homeland Security. Why were Customs and Border Patrol agents whipping their horse reins at migrants crossing the Rio Grande? Context on that ahead. And are you ready for your iPhone to tell you that you're depressed? How Apple's new technology will do just that. Ahead. And don't forget, you can follow us on social media at the Donlon Report on Twitter. You've heard the saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. That's certainly been the case in Del Rio, Texas. These pictures in particular, Border Patrol agents on horseback. And here's where the 1,000 words come in, because you can use dozens to try and explain what this picture shows. Are the agents using whips on migrants crossing from Mexico? Are they reins? Are they attempting to grab them, cutting them off, pushing them back? The whole idea of the phrase 1,000 words means the picture is just as effective as anything we can say to explain it. We see the pictures and decide for ourselves. Is it a challenge, as the Biden administration puts it, or is it a crisis? The president was asked about the situation after his address to the United Nations today.
Mr. President, what's your reaction to the images from the southern border? Get it under control.
Under control, he said. That was a bigger picture pledge from the president. Critics say his administration has been absent at the border, but the vice president is now weighing in on the images coming out of Del Rio.
Treating human beings the way they were is horrible. And I fully support what is happening right now, which is a thorough investigation into exactly what is going on there. But human beings should never be treated that way.
What the pictures and video show does require context, and we're getting a lot of that as well. In fact, last night on our broadcast, former DHS Secretary Chad Wolf urged caution.
It's my understanding that those are not whips, those are reins. Obviously, the Border Patrol, we hire the Border Patrol to make sure that we keep illegal individuals and activity out of the country, particularly if folks are trying to evade Border Patrol and run away from Border Patrol. They have a mission to apprehend those individuals and make sure that they are brought into custody.
Homeland Security officials now say they will investigate what happened at the border. And here's more context. Thousands of migrants gathered under a dusty bridge in Del Rio, watched over and processed by an overwhelmed Border Patrol agency that has been stretched to its limit. What they're being asked to do is not easy, averaging 200,000 encounters a month for the last 2 months running, more than 1 million encounters this year. We just airlifted 120,000 people out of Afghanistan, and now we're flying thousands more out of Texas and back to Haiti. All of it is shining a light on an immigration debate that has raged in our country for decades and several administrations with no solution in sight, certainly not from Congress, only more division. That's the picture tonight. The words to describe it, those are up to you. And with that, let's bring in NewsNation's Marky Martin live for us tonight in Del Rio. Marky, what is the latest on these images that we saw coming out of Del Rio on horseback?
Well, Joe, those allegations continuing to make headlines today. And you know what's interesting is that just yesterday, Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas was asked this very question about the horseback incident. And to that reporter who posed the question, Mayorkas said, "I think you're assuming facts here." Which is odd because he has since launched an official investigation, and he and Vice President Harris, as you just played, have come forward saying the images that they have since seen have been horrific. So interesting that he thinks that journalists are making assumptions here, yet he seems to be doing the exact same thing. He also went on to clarify that these Border Patrol agents on horseback use long reins and not whips to control those horses. And here is Secretary Mayorkas today on the matter.
I also saw the extraordinary work of U.S. Customs and Border Protection.
Yeah, so it's this interesting juxtaposition that you see here. You know, what seems to be apparent praise of Border Patrol and their work they're doing here, but also, you know, they're horrified at potential abuse or mistreatment at some of these migrants. And yesterday, the Border Patrol chief, Raul Ortiz, coming forward and not denying that this kind of behavior or treatment could have happened, Joe.
Let's talk about the numbers for a minute, Marky, because I need some clarification on what's going to happen. How many are still there? How many are being flown to Haiti? And as I understand it, they could be expecting up to 30,000 more migrants in that area. Is that all accurate?
Yeah, so tonight, underneath this bridge, remain 8,600 migrants that still need to be transferred out. And, Joe, this is kind of where it gets more interesting, more complicated. You know, yesterday, Mayorkas and the Border Patrol chief saying that every single one of these migrants who came in from Haiti within the last week would not be gaining entry into the United States, that they wouldn't even get temporary protected status, or TPS, as they call it. But that is not what I'm hearing here on the ground from migrants themselves. I spent the morning with about 100 of them, and I looked at their paperwork, and they all had different final destinations within the United States. And I talked to one young man, a 25-year-old named Darney. He was headed to Houston. He said, I feel like a freed slave. He had no doubt he would be able to go to Houston, be connected with family. And back to the interesting part, when you talk to these officials, whether it's local, state, or federal, nobody's answers seem to be aligning here. In fact, here, I asked this very question to the mayor of Del Rio today. I said, what's happening to these migrants? Are they being deported or are they not? And this was his response. The different final destinations were West Palm Beach, Kentucky, New York. So some people are staying in the United States, it sounds like. What do you know about that?
I'm not exactly sure how that's determined. I know the policy states that some can remain in country, and I believe it's family units.
He said, I believe it's family units. It's all very nebulous here. And just to reiterate some of those final destinations I witnessed with my own eyes, and I also heard from the leader of that humanitarian coalition we spent time at today, those destinations, West Palm Beach, Florida, New York, Houston, Kentucky, California. And that young man, Darney, I asked specifically, straightforward, tell me about the timing of your journey here. Did it have to do with the new White House administration? He said yes. He said he and other migrants see America now as being a more welcoming place. And we can tell you all of this is happening as the White House continues to call this a challenge and not a crisis.
So,
Joe.
Marky, how did they all get here? We mentioned the fact that obviously Haiti is an island. How did they all get there? How did they all end up in Del Rio? And again, how many more are they expecting? Do you know?
Well, at one point this weekend, Joe, is 15,000. And at that point, the mayor of Del Rio saying some 8,000 more are on the way. To be honest, I have not heard that 30,000 number myself just here on the ground, but all of them coming in different ways. Darney telling us today, not himself, but he said some of my friends and our travelers here that we've been alongside, some of them paid $4,000 a person to smuggling organizations to get them across. Some of them, you know, swam across the Rio Grande coming through La Ciudad de Cunha, and then over here, and a lot of them taking buses or going back to Mexico to be, you know, deported there to avoid getting deported all the way back to Haiti. So it's really a mixed bag as to how different migrants got here. It just kind of depends on who you talk to. Joe?
Mark, before we let you go, Marky, I know the governor, Abbott, was in Del Rio today. Can you bottom line that for us, what he laid out as to what Texas is going to do to address this?
Yeah, so Governor Abbott held a press conference here today. He was flanked by police, state troopers, National Guard, and he called the Biden administration a man-made disaster of inhumanity of epic proportions. He also, you know, yesterday asking President Biden for federal emergency assistance here. He said Texas needs resources. We're being depleted here at a state and local level, specifically because of what's happening underneath this international bridge. He said he has not heard back from President Biden, and he says as long as this continues, he will continue to surge resources to where they are needed along the southern border. Joe.
Marky Martin, live for us tonight in Del Rio, Texas. Marky, thank you for the update. Don't just cancel my order, cancel this restaurant. Black Lives Matter protesting the famed New York City restaurant Carmine's after a scuffle over vaccination cards. Cancel Carmine's or cancel the vax mandate. That's ahead. Plus, depression detection, how Apple devices could soon measure if you're feeling blue. So have you ever asked Siri, am I depressed? According to a report in the Washington Post, Apple is working on features designed to detect depression, anxiety, autism, as well as the cognitive decline that can develop into Alzheimer's and other kinds of dementia. The features would reportedly use extensive personal data collected by sensors on devices like iPhones and Apple Watches, including information about users' sleep patterns, physical activity, typing behavior, and more. Here to talk more about this new technology are the host of Talking Live and the podcast Bite Size with Dr. Robbie Ludwig, and editor of Tech Reference for Insider. That's William Antonelli. Welcome both. Doctor, let's start with you. The obvious question here is, isn't it the phone itself that's making us depressed?
Well, the phone certainly can make us depressed. And I guess if there is some kind of strategy to determine that via phone, that's a very interesting idea. Listen, I think if this information is used for the good, then of course it can be very exciting. The question really is transparency. And I don't know how many people trust technology to be used to their benefit.
Well, William, let's pick up on that because I guess the first question is, how does it work? How will the phone know that we're depressed or in cognitive decline? Is it based on what we search, or are there other factors involved?
Well, the first thing I really want to stress is that this is just at most in the idea stage, the very early idea stage. Personally, I'm very skeptical of any device that claims it can tell whether you're depressed, whether you have cognitive decline through your phone's motion or through your typing. This is technology that various other companies have tried to implement throughout the years, and it's never worked quite well. It's hard enough to diagnose mental illness in real life. I have a lot of doubt that consumer-grade technology, like the kind you would find on an average iPhone, is going to be able to do that with any sort of accuracy.
Well, the point well taken, but Doctor, I guess the other thing that I thought of this afternoon was that we use these phones happily to count our steps, to clock our miles, to track our heart rate, all of these things. So what's really different about that? Is it a quantum leap to get to this step?
Well, it certainly is, because a lot of people are very private about their mental health, and they don't want that information leaked. Sometimes they don't even want to tell their closest family and friends. So there is that issue of privacy that really needs to be respected. And there's another issue of trust. You know, will these companies be transparent in terms of, you know, is this really working? Is this information being shared? One of the reasons why the doctor-patient relationship works so well is because it's based on a relationship of trust. The patient knows that, you know, the information that's shared during a session is not shared with anybody else. And that's when you get the most real information from a patient, knowing that it's safe.
William,
so there.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Doc. Go ahead and finish up.
No, so there are a lot of questions here. I think people are very suspicious about companies and technology and the information that they're gathering and how that information will be used, and whether reports will share, whether this type of information gathering benefits people or does not. So there's a lot more to learn before we dive into this.
Well, William, I think we'd all be horrified if we knew what the phone knew about us and what the phone companies knew about us. I guess leave us with this, if you could argue that we're addicted to our phones. We all know the panic that we have even when we don't have the phone for a minute. So I guess one of the questions or suggestions might be put the phone down for a little bit, huh?
Well, it's complicated. There's on one hand, there's smartphone addiction, but on the other hand, there's smartphone necessity. Companies like Apple have increasingly pushed our lives onto the phone. It's very hard to exist in the modern era without using your phone in some way. In that case, I can't really put the onus on the individual smartphone user to put down their phone. Rather, I would have to put the pressure on a company like Apple or other companies similar, Google, for example, to try and make sure that it's not totally necessary to have a phone to live in the real world.
Yeah, and you don't need it for music either, especially when you have it built in right behind you. That's the convenient thing. Dr. Robbie Ludwig and William Antonelli, we talked about it a lot this afternoon, and we appreciate you joining us with your thoughts and insight tonight. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You might remember this scuffle at a New York City restaurant after staff asked some customers visiting from Texas for proof of vaccination. At least that's how the story goes. New York has a vaccine mandate for restaurants. And here's what happened after. And you can see a little bit of it here. There was a confrontation between the hostess and some of the guests. Now BLM is protesting, calling the restaurant racist on this issue. It aligns, oddly enough, those who oppose mandates, often conservatives, with Black Lives Matter activists. So why is this? In New York City, 38% of blacks are fully vaccinated, and among 13 to 17-year-olds, it's just 32%, meaning a large majority of the population basically being shut out. Rochelle Ritchie, former Democratic congressional press secretary and one-time resident of New York City, joins us now. So, Rochelle, we don't know what happened. I guess we're learning a little bit more about what happened, but it appears there was maybe more to this than just I need to see your vaccination card. But it does show kind of where we are as a nation with all of this. We're at a boiling point.
We are at a boiling point, but I think it's very important to point out that one of the issues that I have with the way in which this story is being discussed is that Carmine's is saying that this is because of the vaccination card. However, the three women in this video that we've seen are saying it is because of a racial slur that was being used towards them. But the headlines are carrying this as if it was only because of the vaccine card. And I find an issue with Carmine basically trying to say that because the hostess was a quote unquote person of color, that somehow negates her ability to be racist, and that is not the case. It is very possible for a person that is not white to be racist, and that is the case in this situation. And there's sort of this subliminal deflection away from racism by their statement. I don't think they've done themselves any service with this statement, and I think they've all actually increased the divisiveness that we are seeing when it comes to the vaccine and the mask mandate.
Do you think this goes beyond Carmine's? And I guess one of the questions, because they did go from Carmine's is racist to the vaccination mandate being racist because it excludes so many disproportionately people of color. Is this a protest, do you think, for Carmine's, out front of Carmine's, or more out front of City Hall?
I think it's definitely a protest outside of Carmine's, but at the end of the day, I am for vaccinations. I do believe that people should be vaccinated, and these women were vaccinated, and their cards were valid. The only issue was, after I spoke with one of the attorneys for one of the women, is that they had 3 additional guests come as well, but they didn't have their IDs to match with their cards. But Carmine said, stay, you know, go, it's fine. Cards are fine, stay. Whatever happened between inside the restaurant, because right now we're only seeing really what happened outside, but what happened inside the restaurant definitely shows that this hostess said something to these people that got them very, very upset.
Where does this make the jump to race and the vaccination mandate, and how?
Well, look, I think that people should be vaccinated. I think that all people should be vaccinated, and Black people in this country are getting vaccinated. You can look at the numbers. Let's take D.C., for example. The vaccination numbers amongst Black people in D.C. went from 26% to 44%. Black people make up 46% of the population. So that shows you that a majority of Black people in the district and in other states are definitely getting vaccinated. But I don't agree with this idea that you should not, I don't agree with the idea that people should not be vaccinated. I definitely support that mandate, for sure.
We've talked about it too, because you have a personal, situation and connection to it. Your father, you lost your father to COVID.
Yes.
But I guess I'm wondering, what do we do in a state like New York, or a city like New York City, where only, as we mentioned, 37% of young African Americans are vaccinated?
Well, I think that the level of distrust that we've heard, and I think Carmine also tried to play off of this narrative that Black people do not trust the medical industry because of the history of the Tuskegee experiment and different things like that. And I think they tried to use that to their benefit. But I think the more that we can educate Black Americans on the truth of the medical industry, you know, when it comes to, for example, as I mentioned, the Tuskegee experiment is often used as a reason not to trust medicine. But the truth is that with the Tuskegee experiment, it wasn't that the government was giving syphilis to Black men. It was that they were not treating them for syphilis that they already had. And I think the more that we can make sure that we're telling these stories in a factual manner without emotions, the more you're going to push Black people and all people across this country to get the vaccine.
There were some who say the vaccine mandate is racist. Do you agree with that?
I don't agree with that, because I think the vaccine mandate is to protect all people. So I don't agree that the vaccine mandate is racist. I think that it is an inconvenience if you don't want to get the vaccine, but I definitely don't think that it is racist.
Yeah. All right, Rochelle Ritchie, it's always good to see you, and it's great to have you. And I know, as I don't mean to share more of your personal information,
It's okay, I've shared it enough.
You just lost your grandmother, and our thoughts are with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Appreciate the time. Progressives calling for taxing the rich, as a typically like-minded comic says, hold on.
That's fine. I'm all for ending income inequality, but let's not lie. The rich pay a lot of the taxes.
So who's right, who's wrong, and who is paying? We'll talk about that ahead. Call it the swamp, corruption, or maybe just a system that doesn't work for the little guy. The New York Times reporting recently how accounting firm veterans take jobs in government, help draft the nation's tax rules, often with perks for former clients, and then return to their old firms. The Times writes the largest U.S. accounting firms have perfected a remarkably effective behind-the-scenes system to promote their interests in Washington. Specifically, tax lawyers go to the Treasury Department. That's where they write the rules. Later, the accounting firms welcome them back, now with loftier titles and bigger salaries. Two accountants who would never consider doing this, of course, join us right now. It's great to have Tracy Burns, financial advisor for UBS Financial Services, and Dan Geltrude, the author of Positive Financial Karma. Tracy, let's start with you. No offense to accountants, but this is why the little guy gets upset.
It is. I will tell you, I worked, full disclosure, for EY. It was then Ernst & Young. And I have to say, I actually enjoyed working with the partners that had spent time at the service, at the IRS, because they knew stuff. It was actually really beneficial to us, to our clients. But it does go to the whole big endemic issue out there that the bigger, the better, the more the wealthy get to benefit from these kinds of things. And the little guy who goes to his local accountant down the street doesn't have that option.
Yeah, so I'm sure there are elements of this, Dan, that are helpful. But from what I can read from this article, there's a lot of money we're talking about here that is not being captured. Tens of billions of dollars.
Well, you know, Joe, I don't necessarily think that this is something unusual which takes place in government. I think that it is actually quite common, not just in the Treasury Department or with the IRS, where you have people that are in private industry, they go into government for whatever the motivation is, and they learn the ropes, learn the system, do some things, and then leave, go back into private practice, and make much more money.
So, Tracy, what are we to make of these loopholes? I mean, big picture, why don't we limit them and simplify the code overall, I guess? You know, maybe the loopholes are sort of baked in because of who's writing the tax law, but is it a system that essentially, as you said, is kind of stacked against the rest of us?
You know, the fact that we keep trying to revise the tax code is a big definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. We can revise this thing all day long, and the wealthy will still have the means and the money to hire smarter people, smarter than the congressional leaders who are writing these laws, to figure out the things they missed. And it's just, it's just the way it's been and will continue to be. If we truly want equality and you want the loopholes gone, then someone has to truly stand up for a flat tax or something like that. But this is not going to go away. We can keep doing this over and over again. The wealthy will still keep benefiting.
All right, let's shift to the Met Gala and something that got a lot of headlines that I know we all saw and talked about. This is AOC's dress with the words "tax the rich" emblazoned on the back there. Comedian Bill Maher talked about this on his last show. Here's a clip we'll discuss on the other side.
New York City, 65,000, the richest 65,000 New Yorkers out of 8 million people pay 51% of taxes.
Their taxes
so it's
are
not
still
like
too
we
low.
don't tax the rich at all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all for ending income inequality, but let's not lie. The rich pay a lot of the taxes.
All right, so let's give you some more numbers on this, guys, since you're accountants. We looked this up today, and the top 50% of earners pay 97% of the tax, and the bottom 50% pay 2.9%. I guess, Tracy, to you, you can say tax the rich, I guess, but it really would be tax the rich more.
Right. And again, the more you try to do it, the more they're going to figure out ways around it. There will always be loopholes in this book. You either have to throw it out and start over or figure out a better system, because it is so voluminous now and there's just too many ways to get around it. And again, the little guy just doesn't have the means to find those loopholes.
Yeah. I mean, half of all federal revenue comes from individual income taxes, and corporate income taxes, Dan, make up about 7%. Now, we know the corporate tax rate has been a big part of the discussion here as we talk about spending bills, but I guess should the message be tax businesses more and not the rich?
I think it has to be tax everyone less. I actually agree with Tracy. If you want to fix these problems, truly fix it, and it'll never happen, by the way, you have to go to a flat tax. Get rid of all the deductions and just say you make this much money and this is how much you pay. Now, listen, I don't often agree with Bill Maher about anything. However, him saying that the rich are paying a lot of taxes, that's factual. But I'll tell you where I actually don't agree with him on is how he's saying the income inequality issue needs to be addressed. I actually think what has to be addressed is the inequality for opportunity. You're never going to be able to have people making the same amount of money. Some people are just better at certain things and therefore are going to be rewarded financially as a result.
Hey, Tracy, we're up against the clock here, but I wanted to get you on one other thing. The price of natural gas, it's going up. What's it going to be like when it actually gets cold out?
Yeah, I mean, look, it could keep going. That said, we do think it's going to settle. We had a warm summer. You had Hurricane Ida. You had a lot of stuff going against us right now. It should settle back down, get itself to a normal level. And then, God willing, we don't have a frigid winter.
Right.
Nobody wants that anyway, and we should be all right.
All right. I want to thank you both for sharing a solution that will never happen. How comforting.
Exactly.
All right. Tracy Burns of UBS Financial Services and Dan Geltrude, author of Positive Financial Karma. Thanks to you both for joining us.
Thank you.
Sending a political message with ice cream next in our American Snapshot. There's a new flavor of ice cream tonight. It comes with a side of politics. Ben & Jerry's released a new flavor. Change is brewing in support of Democratic Congresswoman Cori Bush's People's Response Act. Tonight's American Snapshot, you can now decide if you want to make a political statement with your next scoop. That's our time. Leland's next.